maybe better yet, when's the last time God surprised you? You know, I've found in my own life that surprise tends to happen to me when I haven't imagined something that happens, or when an opportunity presents itself that I hadn't dreamt of. And I suddenly find myself kind of washed over with this sense of, wow. You know, I've been experiencing that again and again and again this week. As I approach my ordination, there's lots of things that I hadn't imagined about that or dreamt about. Just the fact that I would be ordained in the ELCA. Somewhere in my body maybe kind of knew it as a possibility, but the fact that it's actually going to happen, wow, I'm surprised. And God, I think, has really kind of been orchestrating that. And the other thing that I've been surprised about is the people who are going to come to the ordination, because it's a weeknight. I just heard yesterday 3 of my priest friends from Nebraska are going to drive over. It's overwhelming to me. I have friends and family coming from all over the country. And it's not about me, it's about the fact that God works wonders. God surprises us. Well, maybe they're surprised too that I'm going to be ordained. But it's all this living in the kingdom of God. You know, and the reason I bring it up is because I think this divine surprise is what runs through our scriptures today. We have this dance with Isaiah and Matthew again today, but it takes a little bit of a different twist. It's a little bit more cutting today, this divine surprise. So let's look a little bit at Isaiah and see what it is that Isaiah is inviting us to reflect on today in our own lives. So Isaiah is writing in about 539 BC. And the situation is a little bit different. You know, the past weeks we've been talking about the Assyrian Empire. That was in the 7th and 6th century, 7th and 8th centuries. Now we're in the 6th century. The Babylonian Empire is what's been reigning. And the Assyria was in modern-day Iraq. Babylon is in the southern part of modern-day Iraq. And the Israelites have been pulled out of Jerusalem, which has been destroyed, and they've been living now for about 50 years in a ghetto outside of Babylon. And what the people have seen now for about 50 years is the city of Babylon become wealthier and wealthier and successful, and there are merchants there, and even some of the young Israelites are being drawn into that culture. Away from the Jewish enclave, they're starting to marry Babylonian women. They're starting to meet other people, and they're starting to be drawn away by other gods and idols. And this is very disconcerting to the Jewish elders, especially those who have come from Israel. Those who are trying to maintain the tradition, and they're becoming angry and upset and resentful because they don't enjoy all of that prosperity all the time. They're not sure. They're starting to lose their tradition to the point where they're starting to question God. Has our God abandoned us? You know, one of the things in the ancient mind was when a battle happened, it wasn't just between nations. It was a battle between gods. And the fact that Israel had been taken out of Jerusalem and taken into exile, to them was a sign that their God was weaker, that Yahweh was not everything that they thought that Yahweh was, and it created a doubt in them. And they're wondering, is our God really with us? Is our God powerful at all? And this is the situation that they're faced with. They're starting to experience sadness and despair after 50 years in exile. And then, as Isaiah says, something miraculous truly happens. Babylon is conquered. This power from the east, out of Persia, which is modern-day Iran, led by Cyrus the Conqueror, comes into Babylon. They came up the dry riverbed, and they worked their way into Babylon, and they attacked from inside the city, getting in through the waterways. And this was a triumphal feat that he had pulled off against this powerful city. And the Jews watch as Babylon and its empire starts to crumble and be taken over by Cyrus. And what Cyrus does when he comes into the city, after taking it over and conquering it, is he walks up to the god of the Babylonians, Bel-Marduk, large statue in the square, and he walks up and he grasps the right hand of the statue. This was the sign that he was taking the power of the god, and he was taking on the role of the God for the people. And Cyrus surprises them by saying, "You Jews, you enclave, I see you, I know you. I'm not going to enslave you. I'm not going to make you stay here. I'm going to free you to return to your homeland. And not only that, I'm going to give you the resources and the guards and the camels and the horses and the pack mules and whatever you need for that 1,000-mile journey to make sure you get back home." And the Jews are like, wow, this is the activity of a Messiah. This is the activity of one who is anointed by God. But we have a problem. Cyrus is not a Jew. Cyrus isn't one of us. Cyrus doesn't even know our God. They can't wrap their heads around that. How can a foreign king free us and create renewal and respect for us? This was what a Messiah was sent to do. And that might be confusing for us who named Jesus the Messiah, the Christ, who in fact was. But the Jews throughout history have looked for messiahs in every age. A person to free them, to be the voice of God, to be the power of God in their midst. They're always looking for a Messiah, one who is sent by God to lead them. And they named, Isaiah goes out on a limb and shocks them all and says, Cyrus is a Messiah, one who is taken by God to free us. And Isaiah writes this passage to Cyrus from God, from Yahweh God, saying, Cyrus, I'm the one. There's only one God. And we heard Don say that over and over again, right? There's one God, me alone. I'm the one who led you out of Persia, took you by your hand and your armies and led you to Babylon. I'm the one who gave you the way in through the iron gates. I'm the one who helped you to conquer them. I'm the one who's going to shower you with their riches and give you the treasures hidden in the darkness. I'm the one who's going to empower you, and yet you don't even know me. And Yahweh God says, I am the one. And for the Jews, they're saying, oh, it really is our God in control of all of this. We forgot. And so Isaiah invites them to be surprised. But the real mind-blowing part of this is that the Jews are challenged to think that God is acting in a way they never expected and they didn't dream of. God is working in a way they never thought, and it blows open their whole understanding of God. And that's where you and I think, can grab onto this story. How is God working in your life today in a way you never even dreamt of, you never even imagined was possible? Who's that person or that situation that God is working in for your health and your healing and your wholeness and your benefit? Where is God working through maybe a fractured or broken situation? Maybe a place where you're not feeling strong. Where's God working through a weakness to make you strong in your relationship with God? To increase your dependence on God, your trust of God, so that God can lead you home. Maybe there's somebody who's taking you by your hand today and leading you in a way that you are not comfortable with. But is God surprising you? So I want you to really sit with that today and be open. And here's I think the most important part is be in the moment. Don't try to create a situation. Notice in your life where God may be doing that. And talk to God about that. Maybe here's a cool thing before you go to sleep tonight. ask God to surprise you in your dreams. Ask God to show you something you hadn't thought of before, that you hadn't imagined before. I know we all have these crazy, wild dreams full of images and metaphors, but let God show you something about yourself, about a way forward out of a situation that seems tough. Give God a chance. Let God surprise you today. Okay, deep breath. I just want to reset, and I just want to say everything. I know some of you are like, oh my God, I can't believe he's going to say more. I'm only doing this because of some feedback I got on Wednesday night. I want to just say a little bit about the gospel, okay? Because a lot of times when we hear this gospel from Matthew, we want to make it about politics. And we want to say, oh, Jesus is telling us we got to pay taxes. I want to just pull us back from that for a second and put it in a bigger context. And we're going to be told in the next chapter what's going on here. This is not Jesus making a political statement. This is Jesus confronting hypocrites. And the situation has to do with the politics because the religious leaders of Israel are trying to trip him up. And they're trying to get him to break his great celebrity with the people. See, the people are rising up and following Jesus to the point where it's challenging the religious leaders and their comfort. People are asking for change. You don't get to treat us that way anymore. We're not outside God's kingdom and God's idea for us. God is surprising us all the time. It'd be nice if God surprised you once, Pharisees and Sadducees. This is what Jesus has been preaching to them in the temple and on the mount. And so the Pharisees and the Sadducees are nervous about Jesus. And here's the clue in this, that this is about hypocrisy. The Pharisees and the Herodians get together. That would be like the Ku Klux Klan and the NAACP getting together. Think of your Republicans and Democrats showing up and coming up with a common platform. Go figure. We're talking about people diametrically opposed coming together against a common enemy. Who's the common enemy? Jesus. And what he is preaching to the people because their authority is being challenged. And Jesus looks at them and he says, why are you after me? Why are you trying to get me to trip up in front of my people? If I say pay Caesar, then the people are angry. If I say don't pay Caesar, then I'm a traitor to the Romans. But he doesn't fall into the trap, does he? He calls out their hypocrisy because these are the religious leaders of Judaism. And he says to them, show me the coin in your pocket. Now, if they were righteous Jews, they would have only Jewish money in their pocket. Because they're not about the empire, right? What do they pull out and show him? A Roman coin, a denarius with the head of Caesar on it. This is the high priest of God. Oh yeah, that's the coin you're going to show me? You hypocrites. You want to play both sides of the system. You want your power with the Jews, and you want the Romans to like you, and you want to be nice and comfortable and have your authority and eat your glorious meals and with your friends, and they didn't drive big cars, and have your summer houses out by the lake. You want all that, but you're a hypocrite. You're leading people away from the kingdom of God. And it says at the end of the story that they were amazed by Jesus and left him alone. When shown our hypocrisy, we can be surprised. And all of us are hypocrites at times. They were intentionally hypocritical. They were trying to play. Jesus is telling us, part of the surprise of this is Jesus is saying, you can't play both sides of the system. If your yes is yes to me, let it be complete. Give yourself fully to the kingdom I am preaching. Compassion, forgiveness, wholeness, healing, generosity, proclaiming the good news to the poor, to the marginalized, to those who don't get to hear the good news that they're loved and chosen. That is the kingdom our yes brings us into. That is our wedding banquet. So, putting those two together, there is a divine surprise for the Jewish people, for the Jewish leadership. Today, there's a divine surprise for you. I don't know what that is, but God will show it to you if you ask. If you knock, if you open, God will show it to you. So let's all be surprised together.